One defensive tackle just became the highest paid player ever at his position by yearly value, and the story does not stop in Tennessee. Jeffery Simmons signed a 3-year extension with the Titans worth $105.8 million, with $100 million guaranteed, and an average value around $35.3 million per year. That number matters because it moves the top of the defensive tackle market. It moves the guarantee conversation. It moves the way agents talk about elite interior defenders. And it immediately creates a question for every other team that has one of those players on the roster, because when one franchise solves its own contract problem, sometimes it creates a bigger problem for everybody else. That is where Jalen Carter comes in. The Eagles already picked up Carter's 5th-year option, which keeps him under team control through 2027. That gives Philadelphia time. It gives the Eagles leverage. It means they do not have to panic today. But it also means they are watching the defensive tackle market climb while their own young star gets closer to a long-term extension window. So this is not just a contract story. This is a football world ripple story. The Titans paid their cornerstone. The defensive tackle market moved. The Eagles now have a cleaner number to look at, but maybe a more expensive problem to solve. And the real question is simple. Did Jeffery Simmons just make Jalen Carter more expensive? To understand why this matters, start with what Tennessee actually did. The Titans did not just hand out money to a good player. They committed to the centerpiece of their defense. Simmons has been one of the faces of the franchise. He has been a captain. He has been a Pro Bowl player. He earned first-team All-Pro honors in 2025. He posted a career-high 11 sacks, created pressure from the inside, and gave Tennessee the kind of defensive anchor teams build around. That context matters, because when fans hear a number like $105.8 million, the first reaction is usually sticker shock. That much for a defensive tackle, that much guaranteed, that much per year for a player who does not throw the ball, catch the ball, or rush off the edge every snap. But modern football has changed how teams value pressure. Edge rushers are still premium. Quarterbacks are still the center of everything. But interior pressure is one of the hardest things for an offense to handle. A tackle can slide to an edge rusher. A tight end can chip. A running back can help from the backfield. But pressure up the middle breaks the pocket before the quarterback can climb. It changes sight lines. It destroys timing. It makes even good quarterbacks uncomfortable because the escape lane disappears right in front of them. That is why teams are paying more for defensive tackles who can affect both the run game and the passing game. They are not just paying for sacks. They are paying for pocket destruction. They are paying for third down stress. They are paying for a player who forces the offense to account for pressure from the shortest path to the quarterback. And Simmons had the resume to force the conversation. Before this deal, Chris Jones had been the major top of market reference point at defensive tackle. His deal with Kansas City sat around $31.75 million per year. Simmons pushed that ceiling higher, into the $35 million range, while also becoming the first interior defensive lineman reported at $100 million guaranteed on a deal. That is the part agents will remember. The yearly value matters. The guarantee matters even more. Because when the next elite defensive tackle walks into negotiations, the conversation no longer starts where it used to start. It starts with Simmons. And that is where the ripple begins. For Tennessee, this deal is easy to understand. They kept their best defensive player. They gave their new football structure a franchise pillar. They sent a message that if a player is elite, productive, respected, and central to the identity of the team, the Titans are willing to pay. That alone matters for Tennessee fans because it pushes back against the old idea that the franchise was too cautious or too cheap to keep its best players. But the bigger story is what happens outside Tennessee, because the National Football League is a copycat league, but it is also a comparison league. Every contract becomes evidence. Every new deal becomes a number another agent can point to. And every team with a young elite interior defender now has to ask the same question. Are we paying before the market climbs again, or are we waiting and risking an even bigger bill? That is the Eagles' problem with Jalen Carter. Carter is not Jeffery Simmons. He does not have the same length of production. He is younger. His contract situation is different. Philadelphia has control through the 5th-year option. The Eagles do not have to treat this like a player about to hit free agency tomorrow. But Carter is exactly the type of player who gets pulled into this conversation. He is young, he is talented, he plays the same premium interior position, he is on a contender, and his next deal will not be negotiated in the old defensive tackle market. It will be negotiated in the market Simmons just helped create. That is why this story matters. The Eagles can wait, but waiting is not always free. If Carter plays at a high level again, the argument for paying him only gets stronger. If another top interior defender signs a massive deal, the number can climb again. If the salary cap keeps rising, the market does not usually move backward. So Philadelphia has two types of leverage. They have contract leverage because Carter is still under team control, but Carter has performance leverage because elite young defensive tackles are rare, expensive, and hard to replace. That is the tension, and it is why the Simmons deal becomes a Carter story, even though Carter did not sign anything. One player got paid in Nashville. Another team now has to decide what patience is worth in Philadelphia. The Eagles have been one of the smarter roster building teams in football because they understand the trenches. They invest early. They draft defensive linemen. They plan ahead. They are not usually surprised by the cost of premium positions, but this is still a difficult decision. Pay early, and you may get cost certainty before the market climbs again. Wait, and you keep flexibility, but you risk paying more later. And with Carter, the number is not the only question. The Eagles have to evaluate the full profile: production, consistency, maturity, durability, role, fit, long-term trust, how he fits around Jalen Hurts and the rest of the roster, how much money can live on the defensive line while still keeping the whole team balanced. That is why the smartest teams do not just ask, can we afford this player? They ask, what does this contract force us to become? If Carter eventually lands somewhere in the $32 million to $35 million per year conversation, that is not just a reward for one player. It is a roster-building statement. It says, Philadelphia believes interior disruption is worth that much of the future cap. It says they would rather pay rare talent than try to replace it. It says the middle of the defensive line is not a luxury. It is part of the formula. And that idea is spreading around the league. The old thinking was that interior defenders mattered, but only a few could truly command massive money. Now, the top of the market keeps proving that if you are a real pass-rushing force from the inside, your value is not secondary. It is central. That does not mean every good defensive tackle is suddenly worth $35 million per year. That is the mistake some people make with market reset stories. There is a difference between elite and good. There is a difference between a player who changes protections and a player who simply plays solid football. There is a difference between someone an offense has to build the game plan around and someone who benefits from the system around him. The Simmons deal may actually widen that gap. Elite players can point to the top of the market. Good players may have a harder time proving they belong anywhere near it. That is where teams become more selective. They may pay the true difference maker, but they may also let the middle tier walk, draft cheaper bodies, or build around one interior star instead of paying 2 or 3 expensive linemen. That is why this contract does not just affect Simmons and Carter, it affects the entire defensive tackle economy. Quinnen Williams can be part of that conversation. Dexter Lawrence can be part of that conversation. Other young interior defenders approaching second contracts can be part of that conversation. Every agent now has a new number. Every general manager now has a new problem. And every fan of a team with a young star defensive tackle should understand what just happened. The Titans did not only pay Jeffery Simmons, they gave the rest of the league a new receipt. And that receipt says elite interior pressure costs more than it did yesterday. So, what is real and what is still unknown? What is real is the Simmons deal. The length, the money, the guarantees, the market ranking, and the Titans' commitment are all the foundation of the story. What is real is that Carter is extension eligible and under team control through 2027. What is real is that the Simmons deal gives Carter's side a stronger comparison point whenever the Eagles conversation becomes serious. What is not real yet is any exact Carter number. Nobody should present a future extension as fact. Nobody should pretend to know the Eagles' internal timeline unless the team actually shows it. Nobody should turn this into fake trade drama. The honest version is enough. A record contract happened, a market moved, a contender with a young defensive tackle now has a bigger number to think about. That is the story. And it matters because this is how National Football League team building works. One deal changes the next deal, one player changes the market, one franchise solves its own future, and another franchise has to reprice theirs. The Titans made their decision. Jeffery Simmons is their pillar. Their best defensive player stays. Their defense has a center. Their message is clear. But in Philadelphia, the clock looks different. The Eagles do not have to move today. But after the Simmons deal, waiting is no longer the same as standing still, because the defensive tackle market just moved, and Jalen Carter may be the first major ripple. Real quick, if you are loving this deep dive, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss another Football Realm breakdown. That is the story in Football Realm. If you love clear football explainers, hit subscribe and join the realm. Drop your thoughts below. Should the Eagles pay Jalen Carter before the price climbs again, or should they wait and use the time they already control?